Hello and welcome to this month's edition of Healthy Living in BR, a program of the Mayor's Healthy Cities Initiative sponsored by Mayor Holden. This program is brought to you monthly to bring health leaders and organizations to share information about how Baton Rouge can become healthier and stay a healthier community. I'm Colette Barrett and I serve as your host for today's program. We have some exciting guests as we get prepared for Heart Month, the month of February. So want to go ahead and welcome our first guest, Miss Hilary Shaw.
Thank you.
And Hilary, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
All right. After we've just gotten through this whole holiday season with all these parties and eating and party after party after party, and we're kind of settling in for January, it's really exciting to have a dietitian and a licensed professional counselor to join us to talk about eating.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Good. Well, you have over 15 years in the industry of working with individuals as they struggle with food. Mm-hmm. So would you talk a little bit about, you speak about people's relationship with food. Why don't you share with our audience what you mean about a healthy relationship with food?
Yeah, so a healthy relationship with food is something that we're all born with. We're all born really knowing how to eat. And what that means is when we were babies, we ate when we were hungry, we stopped when we were full, we got enough, and we went about our day, right? So having a healthy relationship with food is really just about food and eating being a non-issue in our lives. We think about food when we're hungry and we eat and we get enough, and then we go about our day. So that's what I mean by just a healthy relationship with food, more just of a non-issue.
So if you were overweight or underweight, you might assume that you might not have as healthy a relationship with food as...
Well, possibly. And I like to say that the main reason why we might weigh more than whatever our healthy weight is more of non-hunger eating. It's more of eating outside the bounds of hungerfulness. Way more than it is about eating too many carbohydrates or too much sugar or too much fat, or it really is about being disconnected with those just basic hungerfulness cues. So in essence, yeah, it's not having that healthy relationship with food, just what I call, I guess, for lack of a better word, is a normal eating pattern.
So if someone were to come to you and say, I'd like some help, tell me what that might look like.
Well, I mean, first, obviously, I would need to know what they were looking for, what kind of help. But a lot of times what it might be is I'm struggling with food. I've tried many diets and they haven't worked, or I need to lose weight. So I would really be looking at in what way are they struggling. So have they been on and off a lot of diets? Do they do a lot of emotional eating or addictive eating? And what I'm listening for really, again, is that non-hunger eating, that eating outside the bounds of hungerfulness, which means either you're eating when you're not hungry, or you're eating past your level of comfortable fullness. And there's so much information like underlying this non-hunger eating. It's kind of like we're curious. So what's going on? What is it that I'm eating and I'm not hungry? And we begin to explore some of that, really exploring, not just looking at, this is what I'm eating too much of this, or I should really watch my intake, but really looking at, what is it that's happening that I'm wanting to eat when I'm not hungry?
So that's the licensed counseling component part of what you bring to your indirect interactions with your clients.
Right, because I think that if we're only looking at what we're eating, we're missing the boat. And I'd say that most people that I work with have an idea that, okay, I know what healthy eating is for the most part. There is some confusion because there's so much information out there, right? What do I do? There's so many diets and so much information out there, but for the most part, people have some information and they've tried to eat healthy, and for some reason, they just can't stick with it. So, or they'll go through periods of I'm eating healthy and then I'm overeating, or sort of going on one end of the spectrum and then to the other end of the spectrum, undereating then overeating, and people begin to realize, okay, something more, I'm missing something. And so, yeah, definitely the counseling component of what I do is a huge part of really, like I said, like we talked about before, just healing our relationship with food.
And so how long do people usually stay in say, treatment?
Well, obviously that depends. It's very individual. Some people might stay for a while, months, maybe years, if they really want to do some deeper work. Some people maybe just need just some basic information. But if we're really looking at healing this relationship with food, really what I consider the real long-term solution to eating struggles, then we're doing some more in-depth work. We really are looking at some more than just changing what we're eating.
So as we look at the culture here in Louisiana and in Baton Rouge, and we have this love affinity for food, how much does that play into this versus an unhealthy approach?
I know, a lot of people say, oh, we live in Louisiana, and oh, there's all this good food, and it's just so hard, and but really, I say we're supposed to love food. And there's nothing wrong with that. When people say, I just love food, well, that's a good thing. We really are supposed to love food. It doesn't mean, though, that we need to struggle just because we love it. So, I say that when we are connected to these hunger and fullness cues and we're not eating for other reasons, then it's okay to love food and to enjoy it. Like we really were meant to do that. It really is a part of life. A fulfilling life is to really enjoy food. And when we're connected to those hunger and fullness cues, we can eat what we want and feel satisfied, and not have to worry about the health problems and overeating and the weight gain that comes along with that.
So what are some of the cues or some of the advice that you actually give to people who struggle?
Well, if I'm working with someone, we might look at getting back in touch with what hunger feels like. I think that's one of the first steps, because a lot of people have really just lost that ability to know what that feels like. What does a hunger feel like? Or maybe what does a comfortable fullness feel like? So that we can really begin to tackle the issue. So we first have to start getting in touch with those cues and begin maybe responding appropriately. So beginning to feel what it feels like to be hungry again, and to feel what it feels like to be comfortably full. But along with that, we have to heal some of the dieting behavior. If someone's come to me and has dieted on and off for many years, that not only will that disconnect you from hunger and fullness, because you no longer are eating based on your hunger fullness cues, but you're eating based on what someone else is telling you to do.
And your metabolism changes too.
Your metabolism changes, absolutely. So when we restrict our food, our metabolism drops, but at the same time we become preoccupied with food. So there's this instinctual drive to eat that we all have, that's helped human beings survive over millennia of starvation and famine, and it's been very helpful, but in current times it's become more problematic. This drive that we all have for food, this very natural, innate survival mechanism, really. So that what happens is that when we diet or restrict, this sort of, I guess, deprivation-driven eating is what I call it, kicks in, and so our drive for food really becomes stronger, so we tend to overeat.
So are there specific foods that, trigger those types of interactions, or?
The foods that will trigger those interactions are the ones that people have labeled as bad food or forbidden food. So the food that we have labeled as bad, like I shouldn't eat that, that's going to make me gain weight, or like I'm bad when I eat that food, those are the foods that are going to trigger that drive to want to eat more of it. And we often blame that on, I just don't have any willpower, there's something wrong with me, but really it has nothing to do with willpower. It really is just more about this drive that we all have within us to go towards food, especially food that we don't feel entitled to eat.
Interesting. So what strategies or tactics do you share with people to, become more in touch with that, or to avoid those situations?
Yes. So we might begin working, like I said, we talk a lot about the hunger fullness cues, but also in a lot of people that have tried many diets, we need to start healing that deprivation-driven eating. So what I might do to help people do that is to begin allowing food, bringing food back in, not feeling guilty for eating, but allowing it so that they no longer have that overeating because because they feel unentitled to eat. And it does sound counterproductive, like I'm eating this and I'm not supposed to, and but actually what happens?
I've got permission.
But I have permission, and that is huge. And us feeling like, oh, I can eat what I want. I don't want so much. And I've really have worked with so many people. It really is a something that can really help us long term in some of our overeating struggles.
So what prevention strategies would you recommend or take a look at if we have young families who really want to lay a solid foundation for healthy eating with their children? What are some of those prevention strategies?
Yes, so obviously, we want to raise our kids feeling good about themselves and their bodies, right? We want to raise them with a healthy relationship with food. And as parents, we get scared because we see them maybe eating lots of unhealthy foods, and we're worried because we hear so much about the obesity epidemic. But what we really want to be focusing on is, I want my child to grow up feeling good about themselves, not struggling with eating. So what I would say is, number one, if you struggle with food as a parent, is to get help for that, because you're much more likely to pass down those same thinking. And modeling a healthy relationship with food, not talking too much about good food, bad food in the home, being a little bit gentler around it. And again, I think one of the most important things is really just feeling good about yourself and your body. Making healthy food choices, but not going too extreme on either being unhealthy or healthy.
And so as we wrap up our segment, what is it that you really want our viewers, our audience, to walk away from here thinking about?
Okay. Yes, so I just want you to think about not getting back on that sort of diet mentality that really keeps us stuck. We want to feel good about ourselves and our body, heal our relationship with food really once and for all. Maybe get back in touch with those hunger and fullness cues, but doing the same thing over and over again. Just remember that it has nothing to do with willpower. It really is looking at some of those underlying issues of food and body and weight, and normalizing your relationship with food, but really just healing that relationship with food once and for all.
Okay, well, thank you, Hilary, very, very, very much. And if you have questions, Hilary's website and contact information are at the bottom of the screen, and so please feel free to reach out to her with any additional questions or comments. Okay, well, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
We're going to take a really short break, and when we come back, we're going to have experts and leaders in the field of heart disease in our community to talk to us about Go Red for Women. Welcome back. Now we have some really exciting guests here. We have Dr. Awad, and I hope I said that right.
Perfect.
Very good, very good. And Debra Lockwood, and these ladies are representatives of a local movement that's part of a national movement around raising awareness of heart disease and stroke in women called Go Red for Women. And so, Dr. Awad, would you please share with our audience why Go Red for Women? Why is there a need to focus on women understanding more about heart disease and health?
Well, because cardiovascular disease affects women as well as men. It's actually the #1 killer before cancer and all the other diseases in men and women. It's actually, in women, it's very important because women tend to go less underdiagnosed for heart disease. We still typically think of it as a male disease, but it affects both men and women very strongly.
Mm-hmm. And so the signs and symptoms for potentially a heart attack or heart problems, I've heard, are different for women necessarily than they are for men.
Well, still the primary complaint that someone is going to have, whether it's a man or a woman, is going to be that chest pain, that pressure-like chest pain. So that's still a big similarity. But in women, it tends to have, there tends to be more of the less common typical symptoms, such as the jaw, the neck, or the arm pain. Symptoms in women tend to occur more atypically, in the sense that usually in men and women you can have chest pain with activity, but in women you'll see it more so with rest or during sleep, or even with mental stress.
Okay. Well, Debra, former chairman of the board of American Heart Association, would you tell us a little bit about some of the prevention things that American Heart Association is promoting in combination with Go Red for Women?
So one of the simpler things is to do Life Simple 7, which is basically look at 7 particular attributes that if you just start addressing those in your life every day, that will help. So being aware of your numbers, eating more fruits and vegetables, healthy and active lifestyle, and measuring what that should be, and going to see your doctor on a regular basis. So all of those are examples of what's in Life Simple 7, and is available to look at that on www.americanheart.org.
And so when we talk about the numbers, what are those numbers?
We're talking about knowing your the level of cholesterol. Probably is the most important one, where you look at the good and the bad cholesterol. You want your good cholesterol high, and you want your bad cholesterol levels low. And so those are usually done by blood tests that you would get by seeing your primary doctor and getting your annual checkup.
And blood pressure?
Yes, blood pressure as well. Generally, high blood pressure is diagnosed with blood pressures 140 over 90 or greater. And so that's especially important to look at if you have something like diabetes, because all these numbers, whether or not you have diabetes problems, sugar problems, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, they all contribute to your risk of heart disease.
Yeah, the trifecta is when all 3 of them are present, right? Yeah.
Yes.
It's a bad deal. It's a bad deal. So, so what can we do to reduce risk?
There's many risk factors that we're actually in control of. With high blood pressure and cholesterol and diabetes, those are things that sometimes we don't have as much control over, but talking about those with your doctor is really important, so you can try to get them under control. But the other things are being active. Actually being inactive or just not exercising on a regular basis is a risk factor for heart disease. Things like smoking, making sure that you're not smoking, and your weight, your age, things like that are really important to make sure you
are aware of.
Yes.
As we get older, it's just a natural aging process.
It is. Right? They tend to increase all those numbers, the waistline, the age, and everything else. So yeah, you have to be a little more diligent about it as you get older.
We also need to increase the numbers of physical activity or steps to offset that.
Definitely.
Right? Okay. So Debra, we have a rich tradition here in Baton Rouge called the Go Red for Women luncheon. So why don't you share with our audience what's going to be happening in February?
On February 13th, we have our Go Red for Women luncheon, and from 9:30 to 11:30, we have health screenings, educational material. We have booths where other providers in the community are coming in and giving you information, doing the health screenings, little giveaways, so it's always fun. We also have a fundraiser, so we have a silent auction until lunchtime at 11:30. Then we have this great luncheon where we have a fashion show, and a lot of our participants or models are people who have had an issue with heart disease or are related to our sponsors in some way. And speaking of sponsors, we have our national sponsor is Macy's. So nationally, they are in every community that we're in. But on a local level, Albemarle and Great Baton Rouge General are our local sponsors for Baton Rouge. And then the luncheon signature sponsor is Price LeBlanc. But the real fun thing here is you've got lots of people there, ladies and men. It is Go Red for Women. However, we try and involve men as well, but everybody's kind of dressed in a little bit of red, so you see lots of splashes of red that day, and it's very fun. And you know, there's usually activities going on the stage. People are doing funny things and dancing, and it really is kind of a nice midday break from all of it. And at the same time, you're gaining information about what to do in order to change the outcomes in your own family, because the disease is so prevalent. 1 out of 3 have heart disease, and we have 3 of us here, so I can tell you I'm one. But you know, so it's very, very common, and you will hear stories of success and stories of non-success, and what people think they could have done, should have done, or why the information they gathered from American Heart Association at this type of event made a difference in their lives. So it'll be a great time on February 13th, 9:30 till 1. It is downtown at the River Center.
So parking down here at the River Center.
Well, we'll be parking anywhere you can get in, but generally people are parking in the 2 parking garages that we have here. It'll be an event parking activity.
And so you talked about screenings and things. So if you come to the event, you can have your screenings that Dr. Awad talked about, you know,
That's
cholesterol, blood pressure, glucose, those types of things. So it's very important to know those numbers, right?
Yes, very important.
So heard some news just the past week that stroke nationwide has fallen from being the number 3 killer to the number 5 killer. Would you share with our audience what they're doing right to make that happen?
It's probably related to increased awareness. The more we learn about diseases, the more we can educate people on all the signs of the problem. So increased awareness, the increased treatment modalities that we have, you know, with physical therapy and you know, right after it happens, and just making sure you also diagnose it early and just recognize the symptoms as fast as possible.
So for stroke, it's that same thing, identifying early on the signs and symptoms, slurred speech, inability to move a limb, you know, inability to speak, you know, those types of things, to dial what number?
911.
911, yes.
And the most important factor in all of that is the sudden onset of the symptoms. So, you know, loss of, like, slurred speech that's really sudden, very sudden onset is very important with the stroke symptoms.
And so, you know, getting to the closest medical institution in a short amount of time opens up that opportunity to do some therapies. You know, give clot-busting drugs to make the stroke not be as bad.
That's right. It increases your chance of having less damage from the stroke.
So, you know, Colette, if you went to your app and you looked up an American Heart Association app called FAST, F-A-S-T, it is the symptoms of stroke. So you can have that on your cell phone. Everybody has a smartphone. So it's face, if your face is drooping, your arms are down. And when you look at someone and you see those types of symptoms, you immediately want to get them to the hospital, because some of those signs and damage can be reversed if you get there quickly.
But the most important thing to remember about all of that is to dial 911.
Correct.
Okay. Speaking of, you know, heart disease and women and stuff, you know, in Baton Rouge, we have this campaign called Survive, Don't Drive, which is dial 911 to make sure people pick you up and bring you to the closest hospital. You think that's making a difference?
I'm sure it has. That's part of, it's along the lines of just getting the fastest treatment as fast as possible as soon as you start seeing those signs and symptoms.
Because I know that our EMS providers here in the community do EKGs in the field and send them into the hospital, so you know ahead of time if someone's really having a big problem or not, and can be ready for their arrival. So all of those things together, I think, are adding to the community's profile changing about heart disease. So, but part of our conversation is prevention.
Correct.
And so, you know, please share with us some of your thoughts about additional things that we can do to prevent heart disease.
Well, some of the things that I've said, you know, with making sure you're staying active, you want to get at least 30 minutes of moderate exercise activity on a daily basis. Of course, it's more like 60 to 90 minutes for weight management. Things like quitting smoking if you're smoking. If you're not smoking, continue to do that, as well as reducing the amount of environmental smoke that you're exposed to, because secondhand smoke is also a risk factor. And just making sure that you're seeing your doctor and you're getting your annual checkups, and that includes, knowing your numbers, as we talked about, and knowing your family history as well, how strong of a family history you have with heart disease, whether you've had heart disease before, and eating right. We kind of already talked about that. So kind of eating, trying to reduce your amount of salt as well as trans fatty acids, eating the healthier kind of fats, increasing your fruits and vegetables, and those types of things.
So, Colette, I think the other thing is that people really need to understand that they have to take responsibility for it. And what the Mayor's Healthy City Task Force has done is try to make it easier for people to understand that there are options in Baton Rouge, which may not be as prevalent as they were in the past. And so the resources are more available. When you listen to this channel and you listen to what's going on here and you hear from people like Dr. Awad, there are solutions here. Even the mayor and his bike campaign to increase the activities there. There's a lot going on, and the information on this website would be a great place, because a lot of the providers of that care or services participate in this, and that information's on the web.
Thank you all very, very much for spending some time with us and sharing with our audience some of the goings on for February, and highlighting all the good work that people are doing here in Baton Rouge. Be on the lookout for the major information about Breathe Free Baton Rouge. It is a coalition of all healthcare providers who've come together to say enough of tobacco. So it's not just smoke-free, it's called tobacco-free. And so here in Baton Rouge, it's breathe-free, as you talked about secondhand smoke. So be on the lookout of that in all of the institutions. We have more information and resources, including free health screenings, health fairs, all you need to know if you visit the Healthy BR website at www.healthybr.com. The Red Stick Mobile Farmers Market is finished with the fall season, and so the stops will be open in the spring. The date for the spring is dependent upon the weather and will be announced later. But please don't forget that every Saturday morning we have the market downtown, the Red Stick Farmers Market, that operates from 8 in the morning until noon on 5th and Main downtown in Baton Rouge. Go to our website to see more information about tobacco-free and Healthy BR, and if you are interested in any of our previous programs, you will find those on the website as well. Please mark your calendars now for the second Family Fit Day, which will be held on April the 18th from 7:30 to noon. Just like last year, they'll have plenty of fun and healthy activities for the entire family. If you would like to follow Healthy BR on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, please visit our website and for more information. Thank you all for joining us today, this month, and we look forward to seeing you out and about as we keep Baton Rouge moving on a healthier path.